What does it take to make workshops work? And how can we facilitate collaboration that sticks and leads to results? My name is Miriam Harkness, and with the Workshops Work podcast, I'm on the quest to find the magic ingredients that make workshops work. Today with me on the show is Aleksandra Potrykus, and we are talking about facilitation as a service and facilitation as a business. So stay tuned. And by the way, if you don't have pen and paper at hand to take your own notes, why don't you visit workshops.work and download my free one-page summary. And now, enjoy the show. Hola, welcome to the show.
Hi, Miriam. Thanks for having me. Really delighted to be here.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to explore the topic of facilitation of a service as a service with you.
Yes, me too. Let's do it.
Yes. And before we speak about facilitation, let's start with your story. When did you start calling yourself a facilitator? And actually, do you?
Yes, thanks for the question. I really like it. I had to kind of pause and reflect. And the first time I got exposed to facilitation was in my student times. Very early, when I was 19, I went to New Zealand and I was on this kind of cultural program there. So I could do any studies I wanted, and I got to know ISEC. And ISEC is a student organization that does a lot of conferences and workshops. First, I looked up at the people who were on stage, emceeing the conferences and so on. And I thought, wow, one day I would love to be like them. So that was the first spark of their magic that kind of hit me. And I was really in awe of their work. And yes, through ISEC experience, I got exposed to many opportunities. I went through the Train the Facilitator sessions when I was 20-something, so quite unique experience. Loved it. And I tried to always bring it to my work as of then. So when I joined the corporate environment, there were many opportunities in my role where I could facilitate meetings, but also then I started doing facilitation of internal programs like outstanding people management, for example, running communities for people around the topic. And most recently, I think last year was this aha moment for me as a business owner as well, to say it's actually a calling. And some people were already kind of telling me like, why don't you do more work with clients yourself? And then I said, yeah, that's a real calling. And that's actually what fuels me. So I'm back to working, not only working on WeWent, which we'll probably talk about later on, but also working directly with clients, which is giving me a lot of energy.
And what is it that you are now doing differently when you work with clients and facilitating, as opposed to back then when you were inside a corporate and facilitating?
Very good question. Many times, if it was down to an internal program, it was maybe more scripted, more kind of fixed. I think we still had the freedom to add our own flavor. And I remember very often it was about co-facilitating together. So I was in HR, somebody was from the business, and then maybe another external trainer. So we always had those nice teams blending different experiences together. And every time I facilitated the program, it was a different experience because once you bring this unique blend of characters and people, something magical happens and something else comes out. And also the participants are always different. Now, to your question about what am I doing differently, maybe it's more on the what that is different now. So I am more often working with teams and helping them to become more united, more glued together, and so on. So again, it's not a program that I have to follow. It's more of my own design that I can, and you know, there is a lot of work before the session that happens with the clients to say, okay, what is it that you need? What is it that you want to achieve? What's the purpose of your team and of the session, and designing it. And no matter what I do in life, I really believe we are all work in progress. So you're never done. You're never done, and you have to always learn. And I feel like facilitation is such a great technique or such a great profession that you can never be done and never done before is also a nice calling for me. That's why I joined the community. There is always something to learn, and there is so much out there. So yeah, just be work in progress.
And I like the fact that you're just using facilitation as something you do, almost like a process, and as a profession. And I think it kind of is both. For some, it is a profession, but for most people, it's actually just something that they do, or a toolbox that they apply, or even a mindset, maybe.
Yes, absolutely. And a year ago, we had a nice time with our team. We are 4 ladies. We sat down and we said, what do we appreciate about each other? And the girls called out that, I naturally take this role of facilitating meetings, giving structure, leading the group. And it was the first time I heard it from somebody. I have to admit, I don't always do it perfectly, but it was nice to be appreciated for that kind of role I play in the team. So yes, that's really a toolbox you can use in your world of work.
And just out of curiosity, would you rotate the facilitation amongst your team members, or is it always that you tend to facilitate?
We rotate. Thank goodness we rotate, because sometimes it becomes a chore. And sometimes I'm too busy and my headspace is not the right one even to put an agenda together. And then somebody else will say, hey, why don't you do on the agenda and meeting minutes and so on. So absolutely, we try to follow the best practice as well and rotate the roles overall in meetings.
Yeah, I think this also gives then everyone and yourself the opportunity to participate more. Because I think facilitating and participating at the same time is to be avoided, maybe.
Yes, exactly. And on the other hand, everybody, again, brings their own facilitation style. So that kind of brings that innovation in us, and a different method can really help us come up with different ideas. So no, I really love giving it away as well.
Good point, because everyone would apply a different method or a different exercise, so it sparks new ideas.
Exactly. Yes.
Good argument. Thank you. So you mentioned WeWent, your business, and if I understand it correctly, and I would love to learn more about that, it's a service where you help companies to find facilitators to help them either with one workshop or a sequence of workshops or process.
Correct.
So what made you start this venture? So what problem are you solving? Why is it so important?
Sure. Love this question. And the story is the following. So I've already said where I was working in corporate for 10 years in HR. And it was a huge multinational organization, headquarters in the US. Lovely business. We were really quite restricted by the procurement processes for the right reasons. Budget control, spend control, the right investments, etc. I mean, I totally bought into it, but it limits the creativity and the possibility, right? So I would be working through most of my career in regional roles. I had colleagues across Europe, some colleagues in the US. When we finally got together face to face, it was such an important and unique opportunity. We wanted to do something special. We wanted to do something different and something that would really unite us. And then it was very hard because we couldn't pay by credit card. We were obliged to work with the preferred suppliers in the system. The suppliers were great, but they were not for everything. We had great leadership courses. We had great talent programs. When it boiled down to a team effectiveness, team building offerings, there was not much choice. And later on, even with some budget restrictions, people had to come up with their own ideas. So it was quite frustrating that for such an important moment that happens maybe once or twice a year, you can't really reach out to a facilitator, a moderator, a team building company and just purchase them. So that was a real need from us. And actually, my colleague who used to work with me in this company, who was in IT, also loved getting together with her global team. And one day she came to me and said, would you like to do a business with me? and And this is a best friend and a colleague who comes to you and says, let's do business together. And there are a lot of stakes on the table, like, oh, friendship, business, can we really marry and glue it all together? So I had to take some time to think about it, but I love the idea of having a platform which gives access to very diverse portfolio of facilitators, solutions. When we started, we were really focused on team building. That was kind of the heart was beating for that particular topic.
To solve your own problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, that's great. Like Booking.com or Airbnb for team building solutions and experts. That would be awesome. And that's how we started, basically. And there is some evolution that happened since then, but maybe we talk about it later.
Yeah, well, definitely would like to dive deeper. And just one reflection, because I think it's what you mentioned earlier, that you rotate, why you're rotating the facilitation role in your own team. I think this is also the reason why you need a plethora of facilitators.
Absolutely.
Just to get new creative juices rolling. Because even if you would have had one preferred supplier for team building, then if they're sticking to the same structure and the
Absolutely.
system, then also after a while it doesn't work anymore.
When we got into the business of team building, we always loved to find people who are not only doing those fun activities. We actually discovered this world of experts who might do a cooking class, but actually in the meantime, they are also doing a test for preferences, like insights or HBDI or MBTI, and they are using those insights in the cooking class. So that's one methodology when you can say, hey, there is, you think you're just doing a fun thing, but actually you can bring so much learning back to business out of that experience.
I love the example. Yeah.
The other thing is I could imagine maybe working with my preferred facilitator, but if I can also blend it with another methodology of this cooking class, painting class, whatever, you name it. And now very popular, design thinking, agile processes, etc. Like if you can bring different worlds together and combine it for an experience that really serves as a development opportunity or a team building opportunity, that's again where the magic happens.
Yeah. And when I think of the matching process, because when I think of Booking.com, it's very easy. Maybe I know where I want to go. Or maybe I know some characteristics of the destination where I want to go. And then I know how many beds I want and whether I want a shower or bathtub. So there are all these very clear boxes that I can tick. When I'm a team leader and I'm looking for a facilitator, what boxes can I tick?
That's a great question. And we are still kind of evolving how to best support that persona that comes to us. It's and we'll probably get to that, but there's something around trust and really understanding whether there's a match of a person. But at the moment, what we do is we have categories and we have objectives that you could filter on if you're doing one-off booking on our platform. However, through the years, we also recognize that there is this element of a conversation that needs to happen. And we do those conversations on both sides. We will do deep conversations with our experts. But then when a client comes, very often it ends up with a call, at least one call, if not more, where we really try to peel the onion and understand what's behind it. People might come to us and say, I need a conflict management course. And actually, when you peel the onion, you realize, there is a new team member. Maybe they need a bit of new leader assimilation with team building exercise and communication skills and so on. So you always uncover much more, and there is a bit of a coaching that needs to happen, questioning that needs to happen to really land what's the objective of the need of that particular client. So yes, you can filter, you can filter on our website, but we always recommend to book a call with us and talk, and then we can connect you to the right expert. And still, they will do a bit more talking and more digging and more designing. But yes, that's the business of facilitation has a lot of depth. So it's not like selecting a hotel. Yeah. You're right.
And still, it's funny because if we follow the analogy, some styles of a hotel in terms of design and coziness are it's nothing objective. It's highly subjective. And so is the character, as you said, it's a lot about chemistry. So how much do you think is, when you look at the success rates or the successful match, how much is related actually to expertise or to chemistry or personality?
It's probably a very good blend of both. Sometimes there's a client that really needs a specific format, methodology, and expertise. Let's call it, again, I'll give an example of design thinking or agile, introduction to agile, for example. We recently had a client who came and said, I would need somebody to help us with diversity and inclusion. And it started with like bias training. And we had amazing selection of experts for them. And each and every one of them were so different. Some were coming from a very global, international background. They were actually in corporates. The other one was a very local consultant, but an expert who has been doing it forever. So this cultural match was, in my honest opinion, they all brought fantastic credentials and expertise, but there was something more about where they operated, what's their expertise, what they are used to doing. And the client voted or selected somebody who was much more local, who would fit the culture of the company, who would speak the language. I'm based in Zurich in Switzerland, and Swiss German was also one of the key elements for that client because the leadership team speaks Swiss German. So we need that for a topic of diversity and inclusion that is so deep and it's so personal. They wanted somebody who could really speak the language. So that's one of the examples where expertise was important, but there was another layer of this cultural background that was even more important.
And what I like about what I hear is that, they're facilitators or experts that bring in the same expertise, but still from a different background, still with a different touch. And this kind of opens the opportunities that it takes away the competition because, if we are all the same in the expertise, then it's really about a match or a mismatch.
Correct. And we had questions from our experts. They would say, I can see on your website you already have an expert for this or that skill. Should I join or not? And we always say, firstly, we see each other as a marketplace and a pool of experts. So diversity here comes not only from the expertise, but also from you as a person and your character. So for us, the more the merrier in a way, because that allows us to really help out to match the right expert. And we would always try to show to a client a couple of, recommended providers, experts, and they can choose as well.
And speaking about recommendations, so how do you assess actually the quality of a facilitator? Because I think that's another thing that is very difficult. Someone might sound very knowledgeable in theory, but as soon as you put them into the room and all the group dynamics happen, maybe things get out of control. Maybe they're not as good on their feet, air quotes, than others. How do you assess that?
Sure. The first thing is to have an interview with the person. So like we are talking now, seeing each other, hearing the story, interacting with the person. That's the number one thing. And we have a set of questions around, give us examples of clients you worked with, projects you took. We also ask them about their credentials, certifications, expertise, how long you've worked. We are probably a little bit biased, I have to say, because we like to work with experts that have either worked in corporate environments or it doesn't have to be like large organizations, but they worked because they just understand the business reality, right? They have that business acumen, that ability to really sit down with a leader, with an HR person and have that conversation and, solve or help solve the problem that is in the business. So that's for sure it. We also are quite strict. So we like to have people who have at least 3 years of experience working in, with clients or in corporate. That's kind of there are a couple of minimal requirements for us where we say yes. We love now with COVID, actually, what brought a great opportunity. Many people record their work. They have Zoom recordings. So we asked them, can you show us a recording? And that's a fantastic way to validate what they've done. Yeah, definitely. And then,
to dig a little bit deeper there, what would be the criteria? What lens are you putting on when you review someone's recorded workshop?
Anything, from the first impressions of how they articulate the message. Are they able to facilitate the group, their methodologies and techniques, down to are they really engaging with the audience? Are they controlling the group dynamics, etc.? So those will be the things we would be looking at. And I have to add that this then gets blended with, please show us testimonials of your clients. That's another thing that is super, trustworthy. Is the best way to do. Now people come to us from the network. So network recommendations is, of course, another thing. Oh, I work with this person or that person and they've been great at this or that. Definitely helps. So we don't proactively search anymore for experts. It's more that it comes to us.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think that's an achievement, right?
I remember the first day. Exactly. I still remember the first day with an empty website with no experts, and it felt very overwhelming. Like, where do we start? And we just reached out to people and, emailed, tried different techniques. And now today we have around 200 experts on our platform, and growing more steadily. And we can be more picky as well.
And I ask about the criteria that you would look at to assess a recording. What would be a red flag that you say, oh my goodness, this is nothing I can recommend?
Thank goodness it didn't happen, honestly, so far. But if I just imagine somebody that maybe struggled to communicate, that would be a really big red flag. Maybe somebody... we work with, in Switzerland, you have 35% of population that is expat. So you have people from all walks of life and backgrounds. English must be, at a really great level. That's where our client pool is strong. So if there was somebody who maybe struggled with even language and so on, it would be a no-go. And I think I remember it already kind of stopped on the interview level where the person just, couldn't articulate well enough and tell a story about themselves. And I said, sorry, I know your native expertise will be great. That person spoke French. However, we know that many of our clients, even if, let's say, their head office is speaking a particular language, they might have also groups in other places. You need to speak English as well, and that's the common language. So, and then, again, being quite strict on it.
Yeah, and I get the language proficiency, and this makes me think of a culture of how to communicate. So, for instance, the Dutch are very straightforward and direct. German similar. I think I'm very German in my facilitation style. So I'm very strict on the timing, and I would maybe ask for permission to interrupt people and then also do that. All this to say that I wonder to what extent some might just be a way of communication that feels more comfortable to some and uncomfortable to others, where it's difficult to judge, is it good or bad? No, it just is. And some like more the kind of inclusive, warm and slow down conversations, and others like more the high paced, structured, direct.
I guess I wouldn't probably reject somebody on that basis. That's not the case. And actually, again, it boils down to a cultural match with the client, right? Because really, some clients say, this is how we do it. And we are, we are very strict. We cannot be, too fluffy or too loose or too gentle in some methodology. So again, I probably wouldn't reject on the basis of, style, let's say, or.
Yeah. Do your clients then also give a rating? So similar to Booking.com, where you have a certain amount of stars that you accumulate?
Yes, we do that. We have evaluation forms, where we ask people for feedback. We've practiced different methodologies. Sometimes we've sent out a survey to all participants. We as platform, what works a bit better is we always debrief the client. So the conversation is where we get the most. And, the person who was in contact with WeWent is the one that rates. We don't necessarily, overwhelm the whole group with a WeWent survey anymore. That's kind of our approach. But yes, always a debrief happens. And then a debrief with the facilitator as well. So that's our work happens.
Do you expect certifications from the facilitators?
We like to see them, if you have it, we really want people to show it. And actually now we're rebuilding our website to flip it a bit. If people visit our website today, they will see product-driven descriptions, and we will flip it into expert-driven website. So instead of focusing on, let's say, Miriam, who is doing facilitation, workshop X, Y, and Z, you would have a listing of Miriam, and underneath you could say, my expertise lies in this, this, and that, and you would have a section around certifications, credentials, etc. For specific things, like, let's say, we have people who are certified in things like the preference identifiers like MBTI, Insights, HBDI, you name it. Of course, it's great to have a certificate. I mean, you have to have a certificate to be able to run workshops like this. Another element that we brought last year to WeWent is working with coaches. And again, coaching certification is super important. So our recent addition is to partner up with International Coaching Federation, and they bring their accreditations. So ACC, PCC, that helps also to verify are these coaches bringing the right experience. And again, now very, very popular demand, Agile. Of course, it's great if facilitators bring certifications on these specific topics. But we also have people who don't have certificates and are great facilitators. So it's not a must.
Guilty.
But it's but it's a great, if there is a specific format you're working with, why not show it, and it might be valuable.
Hi, this is Andrew. I'm a facilitator and head of customer success at Session Lab, the dynamic workshop planner tool. More than 30,000 facilitators, trainers, and coaches use our workshop planner tool and save time and effort in the design process. So, how do they do it? Our drag-and-drop agenda builder makes it easy to transform your ideas into high-quality workshops, and the timing of your agenda automatically updates when you make changes. You can collaborate in real time with your colleagues and easily share professional-looking printouts with your clients. And if you need inspiration, you can check out our library of more than 500 activities and exercises and simply drag the ones you need right into your workshop agenda. So check out Session Lab to save time and effort in your workshop design process. And now get your first 2 months of Session Lab Pro absolutely free at sessionlab.com/workshopswork.
I have a mixed feeling about certifications, I must admit. And one is that it seems, especially with the coaching, now it kind of flattened down a little bit, but there was this mushrooming of coaching certification problems. And similar with Agile and Scrum, and you could enroll in a Scrum certification online for $50 and maybe 3 hours of invested work. How do you actually differentiate what is a valid certification, what is not? Or do you think, can you?
I mean, if it's something really recognizable, let's say this MBTI certificate, this is done by Myers-Briggs. I know this is an international organization, or ICF. They have very strict methodology, really strict testing and so on. If somebody comes and says, I have the certificate, I really encourage them to add it to, like your example, 3 hours Scrum Master certification. Please add it to your profile, but also tell me, what did you do in that field? How many clients have you worked with, and so on. So it's never just about certificate. Let me be clear on that. It's a nice addition, a nice way to also present the experience, but it's not the only and the most important thing. Experience comes first.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
And this could be interesting for the audience where there might be many freelance or solo facilitators, coaches, trainers, Scrum Masters. What would be your recommendation to sell yourself? Sounds bad. Advertise yourself, promote yourself. I don't know what the nice word is, but because I have the impression that many feel like, okay, we're just all the same. I have the certificate just like others.
Yes.
How do I stand out from the crowd?
Good question. I think it's probably not a simple answer, I have to say. Again, I would just come back to what we do. And I said it before. We love working with people who have the experience working with organizations for at least 3 years or who have worked in some sort of organizations in the past. That's our criteria when we say, hey, this is credible. Somebody really worked in that business. Finding your niche, I think that's another really interesting point when you're trying to sell yourself. It's more complex than just a simple answer, Miriam. So I don't know what else I can say. Again, it's a trust business. So if you can give examples of your work, if you can really showcase what you've done, and I know it's very difficult when you're starting. So maybe then and it's very visible at the moment. There's a lot of offers that are free flying around, but maybe this is the only way to start testing yourself out and offering something. I'm not saying, offer free stuff now to everybody, but showcase what you can do and showcase testimonials, experiences. Yeah.
And you just mentioned trust, that it's a trust business. What do you mean by that?
This facilitation business is such a human element business. As we explained before, it's not only about your certificate. It's not only about your experience. It's about that match, that human match, and that ability to work with people who have very different ways of working, ways of being, managing different characters, different levels in the organization. We also, ourselves, we are contacted by a very diverse range of people from organizations. It could be a team assistant that is being told by her boss, find us something, find a good activity for us for our next team meeting. Sometimes it's the leader that really sees, I have a need in my team and I need to solve it. Often it's the HR people. So it's such a human business. It's such a trust-based business, and everybody wants to talk to you first. I think that's the way to solve yourself. So maybe that's my coming back to your previous question. Don't shy away. Have conversations with people. Really showcase who you are and talk about it, and also have the ability to ask a lot of questions, because you need to be able to boil down what's the purpose of a particular workshop.
Yeah, I like that. Maybe it's about the questions we ask and the way also we listen, because as a facilitator, coach, trainer, this is at the core, right? If you're asking the wrong questions and if you're not listening to the answers. Yes, absolutely. It's difficult to...
I have one more example maybe that I can give. Sometimes we meet on our way a lot of great, we also have speakers, for example, or trainers or coaches, and they have their certain methodology on a particular topic. They are so proud of it. It's sometimes hard for them to flex a bit. So let's say they have a topic of resilience, but the client is using a completely different language and they are after something else. Recently, I had an example of a really great expert that works with resilience and a client that wants to talk about boundaries and detachment from work. I, being the middle person, already see that resilience expert could actually serve the need of the detachment need. But at some point, there was no match, because that expert was so strict on, this is how I do my thing, this is my resilience model, and I don't have time, I don't have will to flex it to talk about the specific needs of the client. And this is a no-go. At some point, if there is no will to flex and to tailor and to adjust to the client's needs, it will not fly. So that's another thing. I would recommend, be proud of your material, be proud of your work, but make sure it fits the client.
Yeah.
And be sure that it's, it is flexible enough to serve different needs.
Did you ever have the case where one of your experts said, I don't want to work with this client?
Didn't happen yet. No, it didn't happen. But I can imagine it could. It could. At the moment, with our experience, it's more the other way around. The client would say, there is no certain match. This doesn't fit my needs.
What triggers that?
The example of, that I gave on this resilience versus detachment, not willing to flex enough, not being able to meet midpoint. I think that was the challenge. So clients that see that, an expert would insist too much on their own methodology and not flex enough and sometimes it's just that the client will tell us, listen, I already have a model for that particular topic. I cannot introduce a new model. It's not my will to introduce something that already exists in our organization. That doesn't make sense. And if the expert doesn't introduce or has no will to flex it, then it's not a match. So those are the examples I had so far. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because for me, this mindset would totally contradict of what I understand a pro facilitator, where you're coming in to serve the group. Yes, Absolutely. You serve them with whatever expertise you have, but it's not about you. And maybe Absolutely. A fantastic speaker. Yeah.
Yes.
But really help a group to succeed. I think you must be willing to kill your own darlings.
Yes. Great point. And I have nothing more to say on that. I think that really summarizes it well.
In your experience, what makes a workshop fail?
Many things I think can go wrong. But the first, I think most important one is you're not on point. You're not on purpose. You're not on the objective. You're missing the point completely. And you're wasting time of your client. I think that's a horrible scenario that can happen. And my own experience as a facilitator, I remember, and it was back in the corporate environment, I really had a group that wasn't buying into what we were bringing to them. It was such a painful experience. And I don't think, it's I'm going back to the corporate environment where sometimes, something is brought top down and you have to now introduce this new methodology. And the local team was so proud of what they've had, their heritage material training and so on, but it had to be, sorry to say, killed because a regional or a global program came. And I remember being that facilitator. It was so difficult, but that's a very specific corporate environment experience where one of my most painful experiences as a facilitator myself.
What have you learned from that?
One of the things I do now is I really have conversations with each and every individual. If it's a team workshop, I would talk to everybody. I would have like a 15, 30 minutes check-in with everybody. So I get familiar with, any challenges I might be facing during the workshop. I understand if there are some barriers, anything that you can uncover in a one-to-one conversation that, and allows you to have that kind of a very different approach from the person you spoke to in the workshop. And you can even contract with them, like, how are you planning to show up in the session, knowing that you have a barrier yourself? So very helpful.
I totally agree. And I don't know how facilitators can design a session without having these conversations if they don't get the feeling of the group dynamics and the particular needs.
Again, back in corporate, as an HR business partner, I would work with a leader. So the trap was we were both assuming that, the leader and the HR person knows what the team wants. And such a big mistake not to talk to the rest of the team, right? Yeah. So, and now it's a learning I'm taking back to my work, and I also recommend it. And I see some of the providers are really practicing it regularly. Yeah. Not all, so maybe another tip for for facilitators, do those conversations. Or if you cannot talk to the whole group because it's a big group, maybe pick the representation group that would give you a good flavor of what's going on.
Yeah, or at least have an anonymous survey where everyone can really answer these questions.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, good idea.
And I think your example is a perfect example of why it makes sense sometimes to bring in an external expert or facilitator, because yes, they get the understanding that maybe the leaders don't have the full picture.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. And very often back in the corporate environment, when we were, limited, we couldn't work with external facilitators. It's so unfair that the leader has to assume the role of a facilitator, where they are actually also equally important to be a participant in a particular workshop. So that takes a weight off the shoulders, and also takes away this authority of the leader, because everybody is equal in a workshop where you have an external facilitator. I think that was a beautiful thing that was happening when we brought somebody outside of the team to facilitate us. And an external or even another colleague from the business that doesn't work with the team every day. And that was a way.
Also to free up headspace to the leader, because if he or she facilitates, it's so difficult to really listen and to dive in and to put yourself into the shoes of whatever problem you're trying to solve.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Since we both agreed that it makes so much sense to really talk to every participant beforehand, would you then have a kind of structure or guidelines for the experts you're working with on what is the process of preparing a session, briefing, or would it be something that you provide as a service, that you have the conversations beforehand, beyond the screening?
We do the conversations with the client very often first, and then we connect.
Yeah.
And we still say, we are very clear also with the client, for deeper design of the work, you will work directly. And we don't want to be that kind of blocker or bottleneck for this.
Micromanager.
Exactly. And even, why should a communication go through us when it can flow directly with the client and the expert? But we are not we don't restrict it like this is the way, the protocol you have to follow. But so far the experience has been there are a lot of conversations that happen directly between the client and the facilitator, and they will have the conversations to design the sessions. And actually, some of them are doing some sort of questionnaire, some of them are doing the interviews with the participants. So definitely something that happens.
And I recently launched a survey about pricing in the facilitation business. And because it came up in several conversations, and I realized that it's something that very rarely we openly speak about.
Correct.
And according to you, what is maybe a range of pricing, and what determines the actual price that a corporate is willing to pay for, let's say, a one-day workshop?
Yeah, sure. Good question. And we get this question a lot also from our own experts. Everybody's like, what's the price range at WeWent, and would you recommend, or do you actually force pricing on us? We don't force the price. Really, the facilitator, the expert, defines their pricing. What we see on our platform for a one-day workshop, it would start from around 1,000 euros. I think hardly ever. You get some cheaper offers. Maybe it's from a less experienced person, but it could, we have prices that go beyond 5,000 as well. And that's because somebody has, 20 plus years of experience. They bring a very unique methodology, or they work with very senior leaders. And that's on the client side, that's also the expectation. Once a certain level of expertise is brought and a methodology is brought, of course, the price, it's okay to charge more, basically. So, those are the two things that I observe working with facilitators. But there is no magic wand, let's say, that says, okay, this is the perfect price or not.
And I think that it can even go the other way around. If you undercharge, then people would think, or they would doubt the expertise. And what I actually realized is very often the more you charge, the more trust you get and the less questions. And if you undercharge, then suddenly the client turns into a micromanager, asking or questioning every single step and wanting to observe and to rediscuss the agenda. Maybe because there is a doubt of expertise.
Very interesting. I'm just thinking about the pricing conversations I have. So we recently brought to a client somebody super experienced, somebody who actually has still a role in a business and a very well-recognized business. So that person is a speaker and a facilitator, and the pricing is super high. It's above 8,000 euros for 1 hour. For 1 hour.
Wow.
Yes. Great. I mean, the client said, listen, this is above my budget, but can we flex? And there is always a conversation about, okay, can we make the sessions shorter? Can we change it from a very tailor-made workshop to a speaking gig where the audience will, go into breakout rooms and do something almost not on their own, but with your guidance only? And we found a way. So
interesting. Yeah.
And I thought, at the start I was presenting the price. I knew this could be, I knew the budget of the client. So I was like, listen, I'm going to present you this expert. I know this is above your budget, but have a look. I would highly recommend that expert. That person is great. Tell me what you think. And we found a way. So maybe my recommendation is, as you said, don't shy away from charging. But also, be ready to be challenged if it's a very high price, and be ready to be flexible as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the twist that you mentioned. Okay, can we turn it from a training into a speaking gig, and then some conversations with the group like that? And
the scale, I think, with the speaking gig, the expert is really valued and appreciated. And the client said, okay, it's really above my budget, but if I can invite more people, so instead of having 20 people in a session, I will have 100 people. It's a win-win, because probably price per person will almost land to the same to the same pricing. So it was a smart move from the client, and a great way to flex and meet the both.
That's agility,
worlds. Right? Yes, absolutely.
Would the price then include everything? So all the preparation and the debriefing?
Varies facilitator by facilitator. Some like to separate it, some not. Yeah, let's say for a 1-day workshop, typically I would say this price range between, let's say 1,000 to 2,000 doesn't include the design. You still need to add the design. So the price could then go
easily double.
Easily doubled, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this makes sense. Because I think it's 1,000 euros for 1 day facilitation plus preparation. That's very cheap.
Crazy cheap.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And actually, I think people probably don't appreciate how much work goes into design, tailoring, those interviews we talked about, those questionnaires. This takes easily 1 day on top of, even if you have your own material, to properly tailor, to adjust, and to fit the needs, you need at least half a day, I would argue, to prepare. Maybe if you're super experienced, it takes you a bit less, but yeah.
I totally agree. I think it's another day per workshop day that goes into preparation. Now online, I would even think that half a day of a workshop takes as much preparation as before a full day, because we have to be so much more structured. Yes. And we have less flexibility to be nimble.
Exactly. And all the tech preparations, setting up all the, live polls, Zoom accounts, breakout rooms, etc. This takes easily also a half a day if you're doing a lot of different things in workshops. So definitely, yes.
And this actually brings a last question to my mind. The topic of co-facilitation, because especially with large groups online, it's very difficult to do it by yourself. So to have a tech host or a visual facilitator, someone who just supports everything that's going on, is it something that is more requested, or because I think it's something that clients are usually not aware of, that there might be need. Is it something that you would recommend and give some guidelines?
I see two scenarios happening. Either the facilitator brings somebody along and actually charges for that, or, and this is my own experience working with one of the clients where I facilitate, they bring at least two people, internal people to support. So we would typically have like, because
that's a fantastic solution, actually.
With an online world, I had a session with 360 people on Zoom. We had an internal IT lead sitting with us, preparing everything, doing all the dry runs, doing all the tech checks, etc. And it was such a fantastic collaboration and teamwork, and you don't always have to find somebody from the outside. You can seek it internally. And the other person that worked with us was an internal content leader who was really, we were co-designing the session together. We were refitting it to the needs of the organization. So yes. And again, that maybe comes from the experience of working in corporates. If I put myself in the shoes of if I was in that role back in my corporate role, I would probably be very involved.
And I see so many benefits from that. I mean, not only you reduce the costs, you increase internal engagement, you have an ambassador for whatever the outcome is afterwards, you have someone who's interested in following up, you have someone who can read the room maybe better on the spot because they just know how people would react and what is normal.
Absolutely. And if I even had a situation where we presented a content and I called out an HR leader and said, I would love to hear from you now. What's the internal perspective on that point? So there's such a nice way to kind of balance the two worlds and always remember what's in it for them in their organization. How they are responding to this. I don't know. I mean, I don't work there every day, and that internal perspective is super, super important.
I love that. The balance of internal and external can also be a challenge or a sparring almost to just challenge assumptions and biases.
So they want often facilitators for the outside in, right? Because they want to challenge the status quo, for example. But on the other hand, if a facilitator just drums the status quo challenging and thinks about the outside, but doesn't appreciate what's the internal reality, it will fail probably, or it will not have an impact, because people will say, okay, that's great, but this is not how we do it internally. So I don't buy into it, for example.
Yeah. And why not calling this fail? Absolutely.
Yes.
Good one.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing this out.
Pleasure.
Since you're also facilitating yourself, do you have a favorite exercise?
Yes. One that I've learned, again, back in corporate, it's called the flower petal. And it's great for sessions that are longer. So I wouldn't probably do it in a 1 hour session because that exercise can easily take up an hour, depending on the group size. What you do is everybody draws their flower on a piece of paper, and every petal represents an element that shaped who you are. So, for example, on my flower petal, I would have my roles in life. I'm a mother, I'm a facilitator, I'm a wife. I would have significant moments of my life. When I was 19, I was in New Zealand. I'm Polish. So all the elements that made me who I am. And then the exercise is we sit in a circle or a virtual circle and we go one by one. And it's up to the person what they reveal, what they share. They don't have to talk about all their flower petals. Some of them can be very personal and not to be revealed. So you pick a couple of elements about you, you talk about them, and the person who is next to you or the person assigned in the virtual environment would listen, not to respond, but to appreciate and to understand and play back what they've heard. And it's such a magical way to get to know each other on a very deep and personal level. It's also a great exercise to experience being listened to deeply and also hearing what how the person responds to your story. It's really great, and it's a fantastic exercise for trust building and getting to know each other on a very deep level. So one of my favorites.
Beautiful.
I still have my flower petals, from, I think there's one from 6 years ago that I still keep, and it's a fond memory of the exercise and also a great reminder for me of who I am.
Nice one. I would love to explore that, test that out.
Maybe we do it in one of the never done before sessions.
I was just thinking
at some
of it.
point.
Yes.
Yes.
Very nice. Wonderful. If someone, for any reason, fell asleep after minute 2 of this interview, just woke up and says, no, I don't have time to listen to all of that again, what would you like them to take away?
Great question. There were so many different elements. One thing that I really hold dearly to the work we do at WeWent is be proud of your knowledge, expertise, and experience, but always make sure it serves the client. It's not about you and your ego. It's about the client. So we are really a service profession. We are serving others. And that's I think the most important thing when we work with facilitators. It's not about them and their egos. It's about helping the client reach whatever they want to reach.
Yeah. And the service, as you said earlier, is based on trust.
Exactly. Yes. That trust really, and get in and build that trust. Show yourself. But I think a lot of trust building comes from that inquiry about the client. So use that inquiry and good questions to build that trust with your client so you can serve them best.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and expertise so openly and also not shying away of the dirty money topic.
Sure, pleasure. I know it's a difficult one and hopefully it helps some of your listeners.
Thank you. And we'll put all the links in the show notes if we have some experts who want to reach out and be represented on your platform, or some clients who are looking.
That. Thank you so much. And definitely if you're interested to speak to us, happy to have a chat. We are really looking for people who bring the expertise, but also maybe really interesting methods. So would love to talk to facilitators.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for staying tuned and listening to the show. I appreciate your attention as I know how busy you are. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and engage by sharing your comments and thoughts, and visit workshops.work to download the one-page summary. I'm looking forward to seeing you back at the next episode, and I wish you a fruitful day.